The arrival of the Dominion fleet captain, Sarah Chen, stood at the observation deck of Space Station Prometheus, her hands clasped behind her back as she gazed out at the star-filled void. The coffee in her mug had grown cold hours ago, but she hardly noticed. Today was the day they had all been waiting for, though most of humanity didn't know it yet. The first sign came as a shimmer in space, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt on a summer day. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez, monitoring the long-range sensors from his station below, looked up with excitement rather than fear. "Captain, we're detecting massive spatial distortions at the edge of the system," he reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. "Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace." Sarah nodded slowly, taking a sip of her cold coffee. "How many, Marcus?" "Still counting, ma'am, but initial readings suggest over 5,000 vessels. The largest ones are bigger than our moon." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the station's chief science officer, looked up from her console with barely contained enthusiasm. "Energy signatures are off the charts, Captain. These ships pack more firepower than anything we've ever recorded. Their technology appears to be at least 3,000 years ahead of what most galactic civilizations possess." Commander James Wright, a grizzled veteran of the Mars colonial wars, chuckled softly from his position at the tactical station. "Right on schedule," he muttered, earning curious glances from the younger crew members who weren't fully briefed on the situation. As the hours passed, the alien fleet took formation around Earth. The ships were magnificent and terrifying, each one a work of dark art designed to inspire awe and fear. They were crystalline in structure, with sharp edges that caught and reflected light in menacing patterns. The largest vessel, positioned at the center of the formation, was easily 50 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that pulsed with ominous energy. Sarah watched the display with the same calm interest she might show when observing a particularly well-executed military parade. Around her, the crew of Prometheus continued their duties with professional efficiency. There was no panic, no frantic preparation for battle, no desperate calls to Earth's governments, just quiet, methodical work. "Ma'am," Marcus announced, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. They're requesting immediate communication with Earth's highest authority." "Put them through," Sarah replied, straightening her uniform jacket. "Let's not keep our guests waiting." The main screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of the alien flagship. The being that appeared was imposing in every way designed to intimidate lesser species. Supreme Overlord Craxus stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body encased in ornate armor that seemed to be carved from black diamond. His face was angular and severe, with glowing red eyes that had witnessed the conquest of 100 worlds. Behind him, dozens of similar beings worked at stations that hummed with alien technology. "I am Supreme Overlord Craxus of the Dominion Empire," the creature spoke, its voice a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull. "You will identify yourself and prepare for immediate surrender. Your species has been selected for integration into the Dominion. Resistance will result in the complete obliteration of your world and everyone on it." Sarah stepped forward, her hands still clasped behind her back, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Defense. Command, welcome to our solar system, Supreme Overlord Craxus. I must say, your timing is impeccable." Craxus tilted his massive head, clearly not expecting such a casual response. Throughout his long career of conquest, species typically reacted to the Dominion's arrival with either immediate surrender or desperate, futile attacks. This human's calm demeanor was unprecedented. "You do not seem to understand the gravity of your situation," Kraxus said, his voice carrying a note of confusion beneath the intimidation. "Look around you. 5,000 warships surround your primitive world. Each vessel in my fleet possesses the capability to reduce your entire planet to cosmic dust. Your pathetic defenses cannot hope to stand against the might of the Dominion." Sarah nodded thoughtfully, as if considering his words carefully. "You're absolutely right, Supreme Overlord. Your fleet is indeed impressive. The engineering alone must represent centuries of advancement. However, I'm afraid I must respectfully decline your offer of integration." The alien commander's eyes blazed brighter with anger and disbelief. "Decline? You dare to decline the generous offer of the Dominion Empire? We have conquered star systems, spanning half the galaxy. Civilizations that possessed technology far beyond your crude understanding have knelt before our might. What possible reason could you have for such foolishness?" "Well," Sarah said, checking her watch with the same casual air one might use when checking the time for a lunch appointment, "it's nothing personal, really. It's just that we've grown rather fond of our independence. I'll tell you what, though. I'm prepared to make you a offer. You have 48 hours to withdraw your fleet from our solar system. After that, I'm afraid things might become rather unpleasant for everyone involved." The bridge of the alien flagship fell silent. Kraxus's subordinates exchanged glances that would have been unreadable to most humans, but which clearly conveyed their shock at what they had just heard. In 3 centuries of expansion, no species had ever made demands of the Dominion. The very concept was so alien to their experience that it took several moments for the words to register. 48 hours, Kraxus repeated, his voice rising to a thunderous roar. "You offer the Dominion Empire 48 hours to withdraw. Do you have any comprehension of what you face? Our smallest escort vessels carry more destructive power than your entire civilization has ever produced. We could glass your world before your primitive communication systems could even warn your population of their doom." Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console and whispered to Commander Wright, "Should we tell him about the detection grid?" Wright shook his head slightly. "Not yet. Let's see how confident they really are." Sarah maintained her pleasant smile throughout Kraxus's tirade. "I understand your confusion, Supreme Overlord. From your perspective, this must seem quite unreasonable. But you see, we've been expecting you. Expecting us." Kraxus leaned forward, his massive form filling more of the screen. "That is impossible. Our approach was undetectable. No species has ever possessed the sensor technology necessary to track a Dominion fleet through hyperspace." "Oh, we didn't detect your approach through sensors," Sarah replied cheerfully. "We've been expecting someone like you for quite some time now. It was inevitable, really. A species as aggressive and expansionist as yours was bound to reach our neighborhood eventually. We've had about 200 years to prepare." The confusion on Kraxus's face was evident even across species barriers. This conversation was proceeding in ways that violated every pattern the Dominion had established over centuries of conquest. Species were supposed to surrender immediately upon seeing the fleet, or fight desperately and be quickly crushed. They were not supposed to calmly discuss preparations and offer ultimatums. 200 years, Kraxus demanded. Your species has barely achieved interplanetary travel. Your most advanced vessels are crude chemical rockets, barely capable of reaching your own moon. What possible preparations could you have made? Sarah's smile widened slightly. Well, that would be telling, wouldn't it? Let's just say that appearances can be deceiving. We've found that looking primitive and harmless has certain advantages when dealing with aggressive neighbors. Commander Wright stepped forward to join the conversation. Supreme Overlord, if I may ask, how many worlds has the Dominion conquered? Craxus straightened with pride. Over 3,000 systems have fallen to our might. Entire civilizations that spanned multiple star systems now serve the greater glory of the Dominion. And how many of those civilizations saw you coming in advance? None, Craxus replied immediately. The Dominion strikes without warning, overwhelming our enemies before they can mount any meaningful defense. Wright nodded approvingly. Excellent strategy. Quick, efficient, minimal losses on both sides. But tell me, what happens when that strategy encounters a civilization that has been preparing specifically for your arrival? For the first time since the conversation began, uncertainty flickered across Craxus's features. This was not how these encounters were supposed to proceed. The humans should be begging for mercy or launching futile attacks by now. Instead, they seemed genuinely confident, even amused by the situation. You speak of preparations, said slowly. Show me these preparations. Demonstrate these defenses you claim to possess. Your sensors have surely detected the power of our weapons. You must know that resistance is futile. Sarah exchanged glances with her senior officers, and they shared the same knowing smile. I'm afraid we can't do that just yet, Supreme Overlord. You see, revealing our capabilities now would rather spoil the surprise. But I will make you a promise. If you choose to test our resolve, you will see everything we've been working on for the past 2 centuries. I suspect you'll find it quite educational. Dr. Vasquez's console began beeping softly, and she looked up with excitement. Captain, the lunar installations are reporting full readiness. All deep space monitoring stations confirm target lock on the entire enemy fleet. Thank you, Doctor, Sarah replied calmly, though Craxus couldn't help but notice the exchange. Lunar installations, the alien commander demanded. Deep space monitoring stations. Our scans show no significant military presence on your moon or in your outer system. Like I said, Sarah responded, appearances can be deceiving. We've become quite good at hiding things in plain sight. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you have 2 centuries to work and no one is paying attention because they think you're primitive. The tension on the alien bridge was palpable now. Craxus's subordinates were frantically working at their stations, running deeper scans of the human solar system. The results they were finding clearly disturbed them, though. They tried to hide their concern from their supreme overlord. Sir, one of the alien officers whispered urgently to Craxus. Our detailed scans are detecting energy signatures throughout their system that don't match their supposed technology level. There are structures embedded in their moon that our sensors cannot fully penetrate, and we're reading power sources in their asteroid belt that seem to be deliberately shielded. Craxus's glowing eyes narrowed as he studied the human captain. Sarah Chen stood there with the same calm confidence she had displayed throughout the entire encounter, as if she were discussing weekend plans rather than facing the most powerful military force in the known galaxy. You're bluffing, declared, though his voice carried less certainty than before. No species develops advanced military technology while maintaining such a primitive public face. It is impossible to hide such developments from our long-range reconnaissance. Is it? Sarah asked mildly. How many of your reconnaissance missions actually land on the worlds they survey? How many send agents to live among the local population for extended periods? Or do you simply observe from a distance and make assumptions based on what you can see from space? The silence from the alien bridge provided the answer to her questions. Sarah continued, her voice remaining conversational despite the magnitude of the situation. You see, Supreme Overlord, we learned something very important about galactic politics over the past few centuries. Advanced civilizations tend to ignore primitive ones until they become threats, so we made sure to never appear threatening while we worked on our little projects. Craxus demanded. Oh, various things. Better engines, more efficient weapons, improved defensive systems, and, of course, our crowning achievement, the Murphy Defense Network, the what? Sarah's smile became almost mischievous. Named after an old Earth saying, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We designed our entire defense strategy around that principle. What could go wrong with invading a seemingly primitive world? Well, Supreme Overlord, you're about to find out. Craxus leaned back in his command throne, his massive form radiating frustration and growing concern. This encounter had deviated so far from established patterns that he was beginning to question everything the Dominion thought it knew about this species. Very well, he said finally, his voice dropping to a menacing growl. If you insist on this foolish course of action, we will provide a demonstration of Dominion power. In 1 hour, we will destroy your moon as a warning. After you witness the obliteration of a celestial body, perhaps you will reconsider your position. Sarah checked her watch again and nodded approvingly. 1 hour. That's perfect timing, actually. It will give us just enough time to make our final preparations. Final preparations for what? Sarah's smile transformed into something that made even the battle-hardened Dominion commander feel a chill of uncertainty. Final preparations to show you exactly why coming here was the biggest mistake your empire has ever made. The transmission ended abruptly as Craxus cut the connection. On the bridge of Prometheus, the human crew continued their work with the same calm efficiency they had maintained throughout the encounter. All stations report ready, Captain Commander Wright announced. The Murphy network is fully online and awaiting your orders. Sarah nodded, taking another sip of her cold coffee and looking out at the massive alien fleet that surrounded their world. 5,000 warships, each one capable of destroying entire civilizations, all focused on one small blue planet that had just defied the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Maintain current status, she ordered. Do not activate any visible defenses. Let them think we're completely helpless right up until the moment they fire. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with barely contained excitement. Captain, are you really going to let them shoot at the moon? Sarah's smile returned, and this time it held a promise that would have terrified anyone who truly understood what humanity had accomplished during their long preparation. Doctor, after 200 years of work, I wouldn't miss this show for anything in the galaxy. Outside the observation windows, the Dominion fleet began repositioning itself for the demonstration that Supreme Overlord Craxus believed would break human resistance once and for all. The largest vessels moved into firing positions, their planet-killing weapons beginning to glow with the energy that had reduced countless worlds to rubble. But on Space Station Prometheus, Captain Sarah Chen and her crew simply watched and waited, their calm confidence unshaken by the display of overwhelming force bearing down on them. They had been preparing for this moment for 2 centuries, and everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The real surprise was still to come. The revelation and reversal Supreme Overlord Craxus stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as his most powerful vessels moved into position around Earth's moon. The small, grey satellite hung in space like a target, blissfully unaware that it was about to become an object lesson in the futility of resisting the Dominion Empire. All prime weapon systems are charged and ready, Supreme Overlord reported. His tactical officer, a battle-scarred veteran of countless campaigns, targeting solutions are locked. On your command, we can reduce that moon to debris. Craxus nodded with satisfaction. This demonstration would surely break the humans' inexplicable confidence. No species could watch the destruction of a celestial body and maintain their defiance. The psychological impact alone would be sufficient to ensure immediate surrender. Before we proceed, he said, activating the communication system, let us give the humans one final opportunity to witness their folly. The screen flickered to life, once again showing the interior of the human space station. Captain Chen stood exactly where she had been before, still holding her coffee mug, still wearing that infuriating smile that suggested she knew something. The rest of the galaxy did not. Supreme Overlord, she greeted him cheerfully, right on time, as promised. I do appreciate punctuality. Captain Chen Craxus replied, his voice heavy with the gravity of what was about to occur. This is your final chance to reconsider your position. In 60 seconds, we will demonstrate the power that has brought 1,000 civilizations to their knees. Watch carefully, and perhaps you will finally understand why resistance to the Dominion is futile. Sarah glanced at her watch and nodded approvingly. 60 seconds. Perfect. That gives us just enough time for final systems checks. She turned to address her crew. All stations, confirm readiness status. Murphy Network, fully online, reported Commander Wright. Quantum resonance chambers, at optimal frequency, added. Dr. Vasquez, Deep Space Monitoring Grid shows all targets acquired and locked, announced Lieutenant Rodriguez Craxus, frowned at the unfamiliar terminology. Quantum resonance chambers, Deep Space Monitoring Grid. What are these systems you speak of? Oh, just some little projects we've been working on, Sarah replied casually. Nothing too complicated. We humans have always been good at making simple solutions to complex problems. The countdown reached its final moments. Across the Dominion fleet, the most powerful weapons ever created by their civilization built to full charge. The energy readings were so intense that space itself seemed to bend around the massive vessels. 10 seconds to firing, announced the tactical officer. Fire, commanded Craxus. The result was spectacular. Dozens of planet-killer beams lanced out from the Dominion ships, each one carrying enough destructive force to shatter worlds. The combined firepower represented the technological pinnacle of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. The beams converged on Earth's moon in a display of raw power that illuminated the entire solar system. For a moment, the moon was completely obscured by the brilliant energy discharge. Sensors throughout the system registered power levels that exceeded anything in recorded galactic history. When the light finally faded, Craxus expected to see nothing but expanding debris where the satellite had been. Instead, Earth's moon hung exactly where it had before, completely undamaged. The silence on the Dominion bridge was deafening. Officers stared at their instruments in disbelief, running diagnostic after diagnostic to confirm what their sensors were telling them. The most powerful weapons in known space had struck their target with perfect accuracy, and yet the moon showed no signs of damage whatsoever. Impossible, whispered the tactical officer. Our weapons struck the target. Energy discharge was at maximum levels. There should be nothing left but dust. Craxus felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Genuine confusion bordering on fear. Run full spectrum analysis, he commanded. Find out what happened to our attack. The results came back within minutes, and they made no sense according to everything the Dominion knew about physics and warfare. Sir, the science officer reported, his voice shaking, the energy from our weapons appears to have been absorbed. The moon's mass has not changed, but we're detecting massive energy buildups within its structure. It's as if the satellites somehow converted our attack into stored power. On the human station, Captain Chen watched the display with evident satisfaction. Excellent shooting, Supreme Overlord. You couldn't have hit it more perfectly if we had guided your beams ourselves. What did you do? Craxus demanded, his composure finally cracking. What happened to our weapons? Oh, that, Sarah replied with the same casual tone she might use to discuss the weather. That's the Murphy Defense Network in action. You see, we spent about 50 years studying every recorded instance of planetary bombardment in galactic history. Fascinating reading, really. We noticed that most civilizations try to build shields or armor to deflect incoming attacks. But we thought, why waste all that energy? Why not use it instead? Dr. Vasquez stepped into view of the communication screen, her excitement barely contained. The moon isn't really a moon anymore, Supreme Overlord. Well, it looks like one from the outside, but we've spent the last 150 years converting it into the largest energy absorption and redistribution system ever constructed. Every joule of power you just fired at us has been collected, stored, and is now available for our use. That's impossible, Craxus protested. No technology could absorb that level of energy without catastrophic failure. You're thinking about it wrong, Sarah explained patiently. We didn't build a machine to absorb energy. We built an entire moon-sized organism that feeds on energy. Earth's moon is now a living entity that finds weapons, fire, quite delicious. As if responding to her words, the surface of the moon began to glow with a soft blue light. The glow pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, and with each pulse, the light grew brighter. Commander Wright joined the conversation, his weathered face showing the satisfaction of a plan coming together perfectly. 200 years ago, we made a decision, Supreme Overlord. We could either try to match the firepower of potential enemies, or we could make their firepower work for us. Guess which option we chose. The moon's glow suddenly intensified, and across the solar system, hidden installations began coming online. Asteroid mining facilities revealed themselves to be heavily armed battle stations. What had appeared to be communication satellites transformed into weapons platforms. The space around Pluto lit up as an entire fleet of warships decloaked, each one powered by technology that had been quietly developed in the outer system for decades. Congratulations, Supreme Overlord, Sarah said as the display showed the true extent of human preparations. You've just provided enough energy to power our entire defense network for the next century. We couldn't have asked for a better field. Test of our absorption systems. Craxus stared at the tactical display in horror. His fleet of 5,000 ships was suddenly surrounded by an equal number of human vessels that had appeared from seemingly empty space. Worse, every scan showed that these ships were powered by technology that his science officers couldn't even classify. How? He whispered. Simple, Sarah replied. We cheated, while everyone else in the galaxy was trying to build bigger guns. We focused on building better ways to use other people's guns against them. Every attack you make now just makes us stronger. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his console with a grin. Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Dominion vessels. Their crews are requesting permission to abandon ship before their commanders do something else stupid. Denied, Sarah replied firmly. We're not interested in prisoners. We're interested in sending a message. Craxus watched in growing panic as his tactical situation deteriorated by the second. Ships throughout his fleet were reporting system failures as the humans' mysterious technology began affecting their vessels in ways that defied explanation. Engines were shutting down, weapons were losing power, and communication systems were being infiltrated by signals that seemed to rewrite their software. "What do you want?" he demanded. "Nothing from you personally, Supreme Overlord," Sarah replied. "But we do want something from the Dominion Empire as a whole. We want you to spread the word throughout the galaxy that Earth is a flip. Everyone you meet that humans are not to be trifled with. Make sure they understand that attempting to conquer us will result in consequences far beyond what they can imagine. Asterisk, you cannot defeat the entire Dominion Empire," Craxus protested, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "We have thousands of fleets, millions of ships, entire sectors under our control." "Supreme Overlord," Dr. Vasquez interjected. "How many of those fleets have weapons as powerful as the ones you just fired at our moon?" "None," Craxus admitted reluctantly. "Then they're all just providing us with more free energy when they attack," she pointed out cheerfully. "The more ships you send, the stronger we become. It's really quite elegant when you think about it." The truth of humanity's trap finally became clear to Craxus. The Dominion's greatest strength, their overwhelming firepower, had been turned into their greatest weakness. Every weapon they fired, every show of force they attempted, only served to power the very defenses they were trying to overcome. "This is not over," Craxus declared, though the threat sounded hollow even to him. Asterisk. "Oh, but it is," Sarah replied. "You have two choices, Supreme Overlord. You can order your fleet to withdraw from our solar system immediately, or you can continue testing our defenses. I should warn you, though, that we have several other systems. We haven't demonstrated yet. The Murphy Network was just our opening act." Commander Wright stepped forward with the expression of someone delivering very bad news. "For instance, we've been working on something we call the Cascade Feedback Protocol. It's designed to trace weapon signatures back to their source and deliver a proportional response. If you're curious about how it works, feel free to take another shot at us." The implications hit Craxus like a physical blow. If the humans could trace attacks back to their source and respond proportionally, then every Dominion ship that fired a weapon would find itself targeted by its own level of firepower. His fleet wouldn't just be fighting the humans, they would be fighting themselves. "You've turned warfare itself into a trap," he realized. "We've turned your kind of warfare into a trap," Sarah corrected. "Aggressive, overwhelming force used against peaceful civilizations. But warfare based on defense, protection, and clever thinking, that we've gotten quite good at." The tactical display showed more Dominion ships requesting permission to withdraw. Panic was spreading through the fleet as crews realized they were trapped in a situation where their own strength was being used against them. Several ships had already begun moving toward the edge of the system, abandoning formation without waiting for orders. "Very well," Craxus said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. "The Dominion fleet will withdraw from your system, but this encounter will be reported to the High Command. They will want to study your defenses, learn your weaknesses. Please do report this," Sarah encouraged. "In fact, we insist on it. Make sure you include every detail about what happened here. Tell them about the Murphy Network, about our absorption systems, about the Cascade Feedback Protocol. We want everyone in the galaxy to know exactly what they'll face if they decide to threaten Earth. Why? Craxus asked, genuinely puzzled. Why reveal your capabilities so openly? Sarah's smile became almost maternal, like a teacher explaining something to a particularly slow student. Because, Supreme Overlord, the best defense is making sure you never have to use it. If everyone knows that attacking us is futile, then no one will attack us. We get to live in peace, and the galaxy gets to avoid learning about the other 90% of our defensive capabilities. 90%, Craxus repeated weakly. Oh yes, Dr. Vasquez chimed in enthusiastically. The Murphy network is just our basic defensive system. We have so many other projects that we haven't had a chance to test yet. There's the recursive probability engine, the quantum entanglement minefield, the temporal displacement cannons. We've been quite busy these past 2 centuries. The color drained from Craxus's face as he realized the full scope of what his empire had stumbled into. They hadn't just encountered a hidden military force. They had discovered a civilization that had spent centuries preparing specifically for this type of encounter. The withdrawal will begin immediately, he announced, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Excellent, Sarah replied. We'll monitor your departure to ensure there are no ... misunderstandings. Oh, and Supreme Overlord, when you make your report to the High Command, please emphasize that we bear no ill will toward the Dominion Empire. We simply wish to be left alone to pursue our own development in peace. And if they refuse to leave you alone, Sarah's smile took on an edge that made even the battle-hardened alien commander shiver. Then they'll discover what happens when you back a peaceful species into a corner. We may prefer diplomacy, but we're very, very good at the alternatives. The transmission ended, leaving Craxus alone with his thoughts and his thoroughly humbled fleet. Around him, officers worked frantically to coordinate the withdrawal from what had become the most catastrophic defeat in Dominion history. They had come to conquer a primitive world and instead found themselves fleeing from the most advanced defensive network anyone had ever encountered. As the last Dominion ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying news of humanity's hidden strength throughout the galaxy, Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Space Station Prometheus and finally allowed herself to relax. The plan that had taken 2 centuries to implement had worked perfectly. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "We're receiving congratulatory messages from every human installation in the system. The lunar facilities report that they've stored enough energy from the Dominion attack to power Earth's entire civilization for the next 50 years. And the deep space monitoring stations?" Sarah asked. "All report successful tracking of the Dominion fleet's withdrawal vectors. We now have complete navigation data for their Empire's territory, should we ever need it." Commander Wright joined her at the observation window, looking out at the space that had been filled with enemy ships just hours before. "Do you think they'll really spread the word like we asked?" Sarah chuckled softly. "Oh, they'll spread the word, all right. By the time Craxus finishes his report, half the galaxy will be convinced that Earth is protected by some kind of superweapon. The other half will think we're hiding an entire fleet of planet killers. And the truth, Sarah replied, raising her coffee mug in a mock toast, is that we're just a species that got very good at making lemonade out of lemons. Or in this case, making defensive systems out of other people's weapons." Dr. Vasquez approached with a datapad full of readings from the encounter. "Captain, the preliminary analysis of our performance is remarkable. The Murphy network exceeded all projected efficiency ratings. We absorbed and converted 97% of their attack energy with zero system stress. If anything, the moon seems stronger now than before they shot at it. Good, Sarah nodded. Because something tells me this was just the opening act. Word will spread about what happened here, and eventually someone else will decide to test us. When they do, we'll be ready. She looked out at Earth, hanging peaceful and blue in the void, protected now by defenses that turned the galaxy's greatest threats into sources of power. Humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this moment, and it had paid off beyond their wildest dreams. But more importantly, they had sent a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. Earth was not a target to be conquered. It was a world to be respected, feared, and most importantly, left alone. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was over. Now, they were the guardians of peace through superior preparation, and anyone foolish enough to test them would discover exactly why that was the most dangerous mistake they could make in the years that followed. The story of the Dominion's defeat at Earth would become legend throughout the galaxy. Some versions claimed that humans possessed reality-altering technology. Others insisted that Earth was protected by ancient alien artifacts of unimaginable power. But the truth was simpler and more terrifying than any myth. Humanity had learned to weaponize the very concept of being underestimated. They had turned their perceived weakness into actual strength, and in doing so, had achieved something that no other species in galactic history had managed. They had made conquest pointless by making it literally counterproductive, and that, perhaps, was the most human solution of all. Asterisk.